know what you are, babe.
Violence never solves anything. We need to appeal to our enemy's humanity. If you break a Nazi's arm, he has 50% less arms to do Nazi shit with.
Here's the most important thing you need to understand about your sexual fantasies. They reveal what your underlying emotional needs are. So say, for example, you have BDSM fantasies, that you want to be submissive. That's super, super common amongst women. 93% of women have had sexual submission fantasies. Does this mean that you are less of an empowered woman? No. It could be that the reason you're fantasizing about this is because you have an underlying emotional need for someone else to make the decisions. The research tells us that more progressive, more feminist women tend to have submission fantasies because they're fantasizing about something different in the bedroom than what they actually observe in their day-to-day lives. So don't freak out about your fantasies. Get curious about them. Ask, what emotional need am I trying to meet under the fantasy itself?
Opinion you have that might piss some people off.
As a woman of color, I'm actually more on guard when I'm with white women and men of color than when I'm with white men. That's not to say I trust white men, but they understand the power dynamics of society. Historically, they've always made sure they have the upper hand. And so when it comes to them and I, we know where we stand. White women and men of color, though, although both oppressed, have an inkling of privilege. White women have white supremacy, men of color have the patriarchy, and you would think they would use those privileges for good, having known what it's like to be oppressed. But many, not all, but too many, aren't interested in dismantling the systems of oppression. They just want to benefit from it. And so they will flex their privilege to assert themselves. And it's usually at the expense of women of color. And so it hurts more because they're supposed to be on our side.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Happy Black History Month.
Speaking after my second experience with being nonverbal in my adulthood, and this has happened like within a week of each other, so this is very new and very bizarre for me. But as I mentioned, as I mentioned in one of my recent videos, I feel like my brain has just been shredding files that it created to be able to function in society. Oh my God, to function in society. I'm not going to edit this because I don't have the capacity, but I'm just showing up authentically because it's important. The point being, it feels like it's just shredding shit. And I'm recognizing, because I remembered so many times in my childhood that I couldn't speak, but I was made to, this might be how autism presents for me, is sometimes I'm just going to go nonverbal. I'm not going to lie. It's a scary and daunting thought for me as a singer who, like, my passion in life is singing. But with this experience of being nonverbal this time, the first time my inner teen and I realized we needed to create safety for little inner child B. But this time I realized, oh my God, my inner teen needs that too. She performed all the time, because she just wanted to be liked and accepted and loved. And some people were mean to her until they heard her sing. And they were like, oh my gosh, you're really good. And then, sweet thing that she let those people befriend her, even though they were shitty people. And one of the first thoughts that came into my head when I realized I was not going to be able to speak again, I had this horrid thought enter my head that was, I must not be using my voice correctly if I'm losing access to it. And that is a very Mormon, shitty mindset that was indoctrinated into my brain from my youth. And as soon as it entered my head, I was like, oh, fuck no, that is not me. That is not for my highest good. That is a bunch of bullshit, and that is not welcome here. But my God, as much as I have come to love myself, I realized there are still bits and pieces of myself that loathe themselves and that are so afraid of being bad and like reaping rewards of death and turmoil and shit, that they're still in there, and they need to just be loved and nurtured and cared for, because they never were, not once. So there's just a little update on that. This is still the most fascinating thing I've ever experienced. Love you guys.
I hope it makes you happy, cause there's just no turning back. Would you love me more? Would you love me more? If I killed someone for you, would you hold my hand? Would you hold my hand? There's a signals that I used when I killed someone for you. Would you turn me in? Would you turn me in? Wanna stay on the loose? Would you hide me when my face is on the news? Cause I killed someone for you.
I am an autistic adult and I suffer from selective mutism.
Anxiety disorder, where a person is unable to speak in certain social situations. I often see comments about my facial expression or lack thereof, or why I don't talk to Miko more when she is breaking down, and it's because I can't. I am able to stay calm if I don't have the pressure of talking. And because Miko is nonverbal, and I see the same struggle I have in her. I show her how to communicate her feelings and needs in other ways. I understand most people don't know about autism. But that's no excuse to be mean. In a world where you can be anything, be kind.
And if I'm lying, then may the devil himself take me away.
Today I'm going to explain xenogender since some people are having trouble understanding them. Xenogenders are a way to describe how a gender feels with nouns or adverbs. Let's take the gender cat gender for example. People who are cat gender do not identify as cats. Instead, they are using the idea or aesthetic of cats to describe how their gender feels, things like fluffy or lazy. People who are cat gender do not believe they are cats, and that goes for any xenogender. Some people who are neurodivergent or have autism don't feel the same connection to gender as a neurotypical person might. So instead, they feel it is easier to describe their gender with nouns or adverbs. So calling xenogenders weird is ableism. Thank you for watching. I hope this helps. Have an amazing, wonderful day, and if you have genuine questions, you may ask in the comments, but don't be rude.
Anarchist history defined. Today in Anarchist history, we're going to explain the basis of what anarcho-syndicalism is. Anarcho-syndicalism is a political philosophy and anarchist school of thought that views revolutionary industrial unionism, or syndicalism, as a method for workers in a capitalist society to gain control of an economy, and thus control influence in the broader society. The end goal of syndicalism is to abolish the wage system, regarding it as wage slavery. Anarcho-syndicalist theory generally focuses on the labor movement, reflecting the anarchist philosophy from which it draws its primary inspiration. Anarcho-syndicalism is centered on the idea that power corrupts and that any hierarchy that cannot be ethically justified must be dismantled and then rebuilt on a more democratically run system. Anarcho-syndicalists do this according to the following three principles. Solidarity. As individuals, they are relatively powerless in the face of bosses, bureaucrats, and the state. But when they act collectively, the tables are turned. Direct action. They don't make appeals to politicians or representatives to act on their behalf, but instead organize to get the things they want for themselves. They define what they feel is in their best interest, rather than have someone in power define that for them. Self-organization. They feel that they should control their own struggles through mass meetings, learning how to act without bosses or leaders, and making sure they can't be sold out or demobilized from above. Anarcho-syndicalists are engaged in a wide range of workplace and community struggles against racist fascism, sexist misogyny, homo-transphobia. Some actions come immediately, and others can be more long-term. These include workplace organizing on issues from pay to working hours to working practices and conditions. Community organizing from public services to housing to the environment. Strike and occupation solidarity, staffing picket lines, raising funds, and bringing in supplies. Worker support, organizing demonstrations, pickets, and direct action in support of individual victimized workers. Networking with other militant workers, for example, through the National Shop Stewards Network and the Education Workers Network. Organizing public meetings on the economy, war, climate change, and other issues that affect the working class. Producing and distributing propaganda, from regular free sheets and magazines to one-off leaflets, spreading the ideas of solidarity, direct action, and self-organization. The working class and the employing class have nothing in common. There can be no peace so long as hunger and want are found among millions of the working people, and the few who make up the employing class have all the good things of life. Between these two classes, a struggle must go on until the workers of the world organize as a class, take possession of the means of production, abolish the wage system, and live in harmony with the earth. By organizing industrially, we are forming the structure of the new society within the shell of the old. Preamble Constitution of the Anarcho-Syndicalist Workers' Union, the Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW.
You having an unnatural allegiance to losers is not like you.
Cannot emphasize enough that this is not what he's like 98% of the time. This is a facade he puts on for the internet. This is what he's like 98% of the time, and I assure you, you do not want this 98% just for this occasional 2%. For example, there is a good chance you will end up having to childproof your whole house, because having a Belgian Malinois is kind of like having a toddler in the sense that you have to constantly keep them from accidentally hurting themselves. They'll break into your bathroom and open your little tubs of cream and eat them, and I've heard of a lot of people losing their dogs this way. They can use their little feet like raccoon paws and open things up. Mason once tried to eat a tarantula, and just last month he pulled one of my drawers out of the dresser just because he could do it. And it didn't have handles, it had knobs. He'll just jump to get things off of high shelves. He'll work at it for a while if I don't keep an eye on him. This was the day he discovered bananas. Mason, what did you do to the bananas? What did you do to the bananas? I left the room for just a few minutes and I came back to this. One time he found my Burt's Bees chapstick. He took the cap off. He didn't eat the cap. He didn't eat the tube of chapstick. He somehow ate the chapstick out of the tube. One time I had his dog food delivered and I put it in our bedroom and I went to take a shower, and when I came back, he had opened the box. Speaking of opening things, he taught himself when he was a puppy how to open doors, including my front door, including our deadbolt. I would leave the house to take out the trash, take it down the stairs to the bin, and when I came back up, my personal protection animal would be opening my front door like, hey man, you forgot me. Which is why you have to crate train them. They will open your front door. They will eat things they're not supposed to eat. They will destroy everything you love. Mason destroyed one of my favorite cashmere sweaters, and he learned at a young age that I wouldn't let him eat my smaller items of clothing, and so he would take them and hide them under his rubber frisbee and chew on them beneath the frisbee, so I would think, oh, he's playing with his little foldable rubber frisbee. But no, he was eating my socks. Do you have any idea how many dollars it takes to get a pair of underwear or socks out of your dog? So many dollars. And I know there are people at this point thinking, oh, well, you just have to train them. You just didn't train your dog well enough. Yeah, you can absolutely train them. They're great dogs once you've trained them. But a few things about that. First of all, because they're so intelligent and hyperactive, you're not starting from 0. You're starting from like -10, -20. So you have to work really hard just to get them to behave like a normal dog. And holding their attention for long periods of time, in the beginning especially, is really, really difficult because, again, they're so hyperactive. And you can't just run them into the ground with a game of fetch to get all their energy out either. If you do not mentally stimulate them as well as physically exercise them, they're still going to destroy your house. They're still going to act crazy. You can't just invest a lot of hours and money to training them those first few years and expect them to be good for life. They need constant tune-ups. Every time I pick Mace up from boarding, he needs a tune-up. After the great panini of 2020, he needed a tune-up because he wasn't getting socialized enough. Even Mallies who are military trained are constantly getting training tune-ups. I had 5 dogs before I got Mace, so I thought, I'm a dog person. I've trained lots of dogs. I know what I'm doing. I did not know what I was doing. I worked with so many trainers. If you do decide against your better judgment to get a Malinois, to make sure you're going to spend hours and many dollars working with trainers, because even if you've worked with other dogs before, this is not the same thing. You really have to ask yourself, is this going to be my personality for the next 15 years? Dog training and letting this dog consume all of my time? And what job is he going to perform? These are working dogs. I would not recommend getting one just for the purpose of companionship. There's so many wonderful dogs out there in shelters who exist solely to be companionship for you. Malinois need work. They need a job. I don't think people realize that we post pictures of our Malinois being cute and our Malinois doing cool things or cool tricks, but we don't post the mornings that I was late for work because I was scrubbing his accidents out of the carpet. We don't post him chewing up my cashmere sweater. We don't post the receipts for the thousands of dollars that I've spent pouring into training for him. And he's really well trained now, not to brag, but the people at the vet's office are always asking if he's an official police dog. But he's the best dog I've ever had. They're one of the most high maintenance dog breeds you could possibly have. And you only get this from them just a tiny, tiny fraction of the time. And if all you're looking for is basic companionship, this is not the dog for you. One last thing that I just remembered, nobody will ever rent to you again, okay? If you rent and you get a Belgian Malinois, you're done for you. It is hard enough to find housing as a regular human these days. Once people find out that I have a Belgian Mal that lives with me, they want to charge me an arm, a leg, and my firstborn child. I'm telling you right now, skip the Malinois, fill up your passport with stamps, buy a new car, because that's the kind of money you're going to be saving if you don't get one.